Hi, I'm Kylie Anne Neal, founder of Kan Culture, and welcome to Kan Talk Kulture. In this podcast, I sit down with some of Australia's most progressive founders and CEOs to explore the heart of their company cultures, what drives them, what they value, and what it's really like to work for the companies they lead. You'll also find occasional episodes packed with practical HR insights to help you build safer, stronger, and more trusted workplaces. So whether you're a new team member getting to know your workplace, curious about creating remarkable company cultures, or just wanting to know more about implementing HR best practice, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Kan Talk Kulture podcast. I'm Kylie Neal, your host, and today I have a very exciting guest with me. This guest has wellness wrapped up to a T, and today we're going to explore what wellness intelligent looks like. I have Angela Lee-Jenkins with me, who is the founder of Wellbeing Changemakers. Angela, welcome to the podcast.
Amazing. So lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here. And we're going to be talking about wellbeing intelligence. And we've had a little bit of a chat before we came on to this episode. And what's really inspiring is that, Angela, I feel that you've got a part of the market that organisations don't understand yet. I feel like over the last 5 years or so, there's been a lot of progress in the area of wellness, and organisations have really almost been forced to look at what wellness initiatives are. But there's so many factors that kind of come into play. So I'm really excited to be exploring this topic with you.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it's such an, important conversation to be having. I think, our well-being is foundational to everything.
Yes.
At work and life.
Yes, absolutely. And that it's kind of one of both, isn't it? That work-life separation, it doesn't separate when you're talking about your well-being and your wellness.
Yeah.
So, Angela, first of all, do you just take us through, give us a little bit of a snapshot of who Angela Lee-Jenkins is?
Oh, who am I?
Who are you?
Who am I? So my original background was in exercise physiology. I, finished uni, did human movements at UQ, graduated in 1999 and, moved to Sydney, sort of worked in that, corporate exercise physiology space, moved over to London just because that's what you do when you're young and don't do whatever you want, you go and do that. I lived in London and again, sort of with that high profile executive client was typically what I attracted. I ended up getting a contract with the Mattel family, who at the time I didn't know when I started with them, but they ended up being the third richest family in the world.
Wow.
So I worked with the family there and, learnt lots about well-being and how it fits into so many aspects of life. Moved back to Australia, set up an exercise physiology practice. So I had a business partner, built up a team, and then like with a lot of people, we have lots of different life changes and went back to uni and set up my consultancy and do a lot more so now back in the corporate leadership place, particularly bringing wellbeing as a foundational leadership capability. So I like to think of myself as your wellbeing intelligence partner. So I work with individuals, privately, work with teams and also organisations, really, bringing wellbeing to the forefront in not only what we do, but how we live.
Yeah,
so that's a 101, 30 years right there.
Fantastic. In a snapshot. Thank you. And let's define. Well, could you please define for us what wellbeing intelligence means?
Look, I think with wellbeing in particular, it means different things to different people. So I think it's about, just understanding the different concepts to it. And I look at wellbeing intelligence as being unique. It's something unique to everyone. It's relational and it's contextual, shaped by the environments and everything that we're around. And I like to look at it through a whole person first lens, so physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritual as the person, and we're social creatures, and then look at it through a whole system lens and understand that, it's not just the individual, it's the relationships, it's the workplaces, the community, the policies, the society, and everything around it that actually influences our well-being. So well-being is really multidimensional, and
Yes.
I think it's about, being well in all aspects of that, and just understanding that it's that. And I think what that looks like for different people is different.
Yes.
So, there's different definitions that I do tend to lean towards and like in that space, particularly the Harvard flourishing principles and things like that really resonate with me. But I don't know if there's one official definition, but it's just understanding that wellbeing intelligence is all of those areas, and it's how we can, have positive experiences across that.
Yes. Yeah. And looking at it, I would kind of naturally look at it in the lens of organisations and how they can create better wellbeing intelligence from an education perspective, but also from an adaptation perspective for individuals that work within a business. And I think in my experience, wellbeing is something that is actually governed through legislation these days with the whole psychosocial hazards, with definitions like organisational justice, which is psychosocial harm, and role clarity and job demands. And I know that wellbeing intelligence touches on all of those things, but organisations are often restricted by what budget do we have for wellbeing? How can we attract new recruits because of the additional benefits? And organisations see wellbeing as an additional benefit. So I think the complexity that a lot of organisations that I work with would face when looking at wellbeing intelligence would be how do we really capture something that makes sense for everybody, but that is like very uniquely individual?
Yeah. Look, I think there's a few parts of that question. And I think, the first bit is we need to stop looking at wellbeing as like it's something extra to the budget and it's like this luxury, like it's this, okay, we're going to put on this amazing day and we're going to do all these things because,
team building.
Yeah, because if we looked at it differently, and this is what, a big part of the work that I'm doing is looking at wellbeing intelligence as a foundational leadership capability for your leaders. And, there are budgets for leadership development. There are budgets that we do, and it's looking at, what have we currently got in our, leadership budgets. And, wellbeing is actually the foundation to that.
Yes.
If we're not showing up well, we can't access the best, the communication course that we've just done. We're not going to communicate well, even though we know what to do. We're not going to show up as that emotionally intelligent version of ourselves. So I think the first bit is actually switching our perspective in how we look at it. It's actually a foundational capability that, should be from the very beginning, from onboarding all the way through. So I think there's that component of it. And when we learn about wellbeing and when we, educate the leaders on that, one of the first principles of wellbeing intelligence is that it's unique to everyone.
Yes.
And it's us understanding that and communicating that as wellbeing means different things to different people. And, just understanding that concept is really important because there are some people that are happy to take on certain jobs and they're happy to get up at, 4:00 in the morning, and that works for them because that works into their life and what they do. And so having certain rules for certain people, I think it's just understanding the individual and always asking. I've actually done a lot of epigenetic profiling as well. It actually goes into the biology of individuals and actually aligning them to their role. So some people are more people in the morning, some people are like more early birds, some people are more night owls.
Yes.
Different days we have our optimal function. So sometimes you can actually align, when you go deeper, you can actually align parts of roles. So you're actually performing at your best from a biological perspective and set up an environment around that. And I think it's understanding that. It's understanding that some people love a chat and some people love to be around people all the time. Some people are really happy in their office and with the door shut.
Yeah.
So it's us understanding different things. And, with job demands, like some people can find some jobs really difficult. Some people find the same job really easy. But it's us having, those different levels of awareness about, as a leader, where is our team at
Yes.
You know, what have they got going on in their life? How are they showing up? So it's, I don't know if I'm going a little bit off tangent here, but I think it's just importantly, changing the perspective of how we look at things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said, I think a key word is awareness, because for people to be able to understand where they best perform, it means that they have to slow things down to a pace where they can actually create conscious awareness of
Yep.
what they're doing, like conscious awareness of the job demands. And instead of just, going towards, completion of OKRs, business initiatives, whatever their role demands of them, actually consciously thinking about where is my well-being or wellness in this situation? Where are my personal boundaries to what I do participate in and what I push back on? Because everyone needs to have boundaries. And I think work demands often really impact personal boundaries, because sometimes, in my experience, personal boundaries aren't respected in a workplace. The demands of the workplace comes first.
And I think it's, understanding ourselves is the key. So it's obviously having that self-awareness of when to say no, but it's also having little practices and systems built in to catch yourself. Because what I see a lot with people, and I get asked this question in my workshops, is like, Angela, but I often don't catch myself until I'm really, really stressed and really it's really affecting me. And I think, so there's that level of self-awareness that's really important, and having those regular practices. But it's also setting up our schedule. Like, I'm very big on micro breaks and setting up our schedule with that and with resets during the day so we're performing. But also as a team, having the check-ins and, checking in on each other. And when the whole team's educated, we can start to see that, someone's in a bit of a rough patch here. Like, how can I step in and just take that bit of a workload, tag team, or what do you need? So we're actually looking out for each other, because well-being is hugely complex and there are so many different factors that, are at play. And I'm always about, yes, what can the organisation do and what can the individual do? Because it's reciprocity, right? It's not like, this organisation needs to do this and me, but I'm still going to stay up till 2:00 in the morning and I'm going to, eat Maccas on the way to work and I'm not going to do anything to take care of myself. So it's very much about teaching people to take care of their self, but also the organisation is, how can we support our team better? So it's not just performing now and burning out and having to replace that person. It's actually sustainable performance over time, because we all know that the cost of replacing someone and speed to competency expenses are huge, as opposed to keeping someone, in the role. And so it's just sort of teaching different practices for the individual, but also as an organisation, how we do things.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, I think about some of the work that I've created for my clients in performance reviews or in one-on-one templates. Like, I have created performance review process that's very much focused on energy in, energy out. Like, what kind of tasks give you energy? What depletes your energy? How do we understand what those tasks are in either pocket and either amplify the things that give you energy, detract from what doesn't give you energy, if that's achievable within a job function or a job position description. And I feel like through the experience of that, some individuals are just so grateful to have that conversation. And for it to be okay, given permission to say, this depletes my energy. And if you've got a whole chunk of your role that consistently depletes your energy from a wellness perspective, you're not in the right place. You're not in the right role. But people don't have space to have those conversations. So, if companies were educated on well-being and wellness better, and there was that space allowed for leadership teams to talk about, this is what wellness looks like for me. This is what wellness looks like for my direct reports. In one-on-ones, okay, well, in your, wellness, whatever it is, like the wellness plan, for one of the better words, sorry. They're able to articulate that to each other and have a much deeper understanding of the actual human function of how they coexist together in a workplace.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, what you touched upon was, I guess, job crafting techniques, like, knowing what depletes our energy, what gives us energy, and things like that are really important for our mental health and well-being. And there's actually
Yes.
even a whole framework called smart work design, which has been shown. It's comes under the protect. So there's a thrive at work framework, which is about, responding to issues that happen, protecting our team, and then also promoting. So, smart work design, like all the job crafting, looking at our strength, is actually a really great protective mechanism for our team. And I think, just having those discussions with the team is so crucial, because there's someone who loves the thing that depletes your energy.
Yes.
And so, how can we work together, or understanding that, look, that is a part of my role that depletes my energy. How can I structure that in a way? Like, I work with some teams and they go, look, I just like to get that bit out the way first.
Yes.
And do it. Or we might go, right, time blocking, because often we procrastinate and we think, oh, I've got to do that job, and we wasted this time. Whereas, they found, like, doing time blocking and setting, right, I'm going to set myself 45 minutes for this block. I'm really going to focus on this. And I get people to maybe do a breath reset before they do it, have a little micro break, reset their nervous system, get focused, and go in and have that block. Now, they could have sat there for 45 minutes procrastinating, going around in circles. So it's actually getting people engaged in that. And something I'm about is also the distractions.
Yes.
There's so many distractions that take us away, like, every 7 seconds, and it takes us, 23 minutes to re-engage. And
Yes.
so, and all of these things, particularly for females in the workplace, particularly for working mums, which are the highest, level of burnout, is
Yes.
we've got all these distractions, but how can we reduce some of those, reduce the cognitive overload that
Yes.
we're taking in as well, so we can actually focus on doing meaningful work? And
Yes.
another thing that I'm really passionate about as well is, like, people think, oh, how am I going to fit in wellbeing? It's something else I have to add in. It's something else. We're already stretched. Well, this is the whole thing, right? Is sometimes it's about what wellbeing is about, what we're removing. I'm very much about with the meetings, who needs to be on this meeting? What is the intention of this meeting? What's the purpose of it? Let's not have back-to-back meetings. Microsoft has done research which shows by having the small breaks between meetings, impacts you by the end of the day. So, being smarter about that, and, like, who needs to be in this meeting to move this forward? Us thinking that, other than we're in this habit of just being after meeting after meeting after meeting, not getting any meaningful work done. So who needs to be there? What's the objective of that? And let's be really focused. Let's set ourselves up. And I'm very much, from the exercise physiology background, changing our physiology, because when we change our physiology, we change our psychology, and we're showing up with more presence and intention in a role. So, I'm very big about doing those type of things too, and also getting people to understand that well-being you don't necessarily have to go and do a 90-minute yoga class every night, or, meditate for an hour in the morning. Like, it's the small things.
Yes.
And it's the small moments that make a difference. So, I'm very much reset. You can reset your nervous system in 60 to 90 seconds and just get out of that stress sympathetic state. So having those small resets during the day make a big difference. And I always say to someone that, when you're taking off on your day, stress is inevitable. In fact, stress helps us grow. It gives us challenge. It's how we evolve. But it's when it becomes stress plus stress equals distress, but it's stress plus recovery equals high performance. So we can have these, like, recover at work micro things. And there's, a lot of research that I think her name's Dr. Sabine Sonntag has done on that, right? So there's all these things that we can just change the way our work practices are. Know that if we get outside for 5 minutes and have a green break, it changes our mood and reduces our anxiety.
Yeah.
Knowing these things, like, some people know this, but they're not doing it.
Yeah. And they'll sit at their desk and have their lunch at their desk.
Yeah. So it's like, but those things, and it's sort of counterintuitive. People go, I'm so busy, I've got so much on my plate. And I get that. But all the teams that I work with, once they go out and have that break, the level of productivity that comes back in that afternoon block is huge.
Yes.
So it's actually supporting each other as a team, like, to call each other out too, and have that culture where go and have your break. I'll take this call for you. Let's get it covered. Then I'll go have my break, or, make each other, support each other to do it. Been working with the workplace for a year, and just the culture change in the head office, like, it's a remote workforce as well, but they're all popping out for walks at lunch break, and they become friends, and that's where they have the debrief, and they have a little lunch together, or they're looking for opportunities. The remote workforce is looking for, rather than just go straight into the next childcare centre, they're looking for, like, a park where they can have a reset or do their emails there, so they're in a bit of nature. So once you know what you're looking for, you will see.
Yes.
So once it comes into your awareness, you'll see so many more opportunities to bring well-being into those small practices.
Yes.
So
I was going to ask you about remote working because, you know, it's a different environment when you're not around your humans and you don't have that opportunity of human connection with people that you work with. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of science for human connectivity and the difference in energy of being in a space with someone than being virtually. What else have you seen from the differences between people that work in an office and those that work remote?
Well, again, I think it's a unique thing, right? So there's a uniqueness in our natural biology about what is better for us. So some people, while social connection is huge, it's so important for all of us. It's more for some people than other people as well. So this team that I'm working with, they're trainers and assessors in the childcare sector, and a lot of them were former childcare directors. So they're used to being around connection all day, and they're used to being around that. So
noise and distraction constantly with little feet running around.
Exactly, but that's sort of, they're wired for that too, you know. So when they move into this force, I think it's just understanding that we don't have that support there. So what are other things that we can do to have that connection? So there's certain things they do online with the team, absolutely, but it might be things that they need to put into place outside of that as well. It might be, I'm missing this in-person connection, so I'm going to make sure that I catch up with 2 people a week to have that social connection, or that they might get other interests outside of work. So sometimes it's not the workplace can bring in and automatically bring in all of these things for people, but knowing that we are missing that social connection, that does influence our well-being. So what are some other things that we can do to support us in different ways? So, and I think, that's different. Like some people have a buddy that they speak to and chat, or have just fun messages, and it is different to in person.
Yeah.
But it's looking out for those other in-person opportunities too, because what I see a lot, walking down the street, there's moments all day when we can either have a moment to smile and connect with someone, because we've all got mirror neurons. We all have that little moment. We get that oxytocin hit.
Yes.
We can choose to do that.
Yes.
Or we can choose to be walking down the street looking at our phone, not having that.
Yes.
So there's still lots of human connections. We can talk to the person who gets our coffee. How was your day today? So I think it's understanding that, but also, looking for opportunities. And when I set them up on sort of their coaching tool, they might have a specific thing that they're focusing on that. So it's a reminder that they're looking for those opportunities.
Yeah. And so you've been working, let's take that as a case study, that team that you've been working with for the past 12 months.
Yeah.
What have been the most significant change that you've seen with them working on wellbeing intelligence? And have there been any surprises in what the impact has been?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I am just really surprised about how wellbeing's come to the forefront, and the changes that a lot of the team have made personally has been huge, because a lot of these were ex-childcare directors, and, yes, they were into it. They weren't sort of massively health and fitness, traditional health and fitness type people, but it's just more top of mind, and they're looking for that, and the changes that the choices that they're making are very different in the changes that they're making. So that's huge.
Yeah.
I definitely feel their mindset, I guess. Like I definitely feel there's been a shift from, very much into a growth mindset. Like very much when I'm having the coaching sessions with them, it's shifted into, hang on, how can we find a solution?
Yes.
Because when you're out of that stressed state, so when we're in a stressed state, all we tend to see is like we're narrow-minded, all we tend to see is problems. Yet when we relax our nervous system a bit, look after ourselves, we see opportunities more.
Yes.
We widen our lens and we can see that. So I've certainly...
Barbara Friedrichsen, the broaden and build, that's my most favourite psychological theory ever.
Yeah, and it's very much like it's expanded. I've seen that hugely from the wellbeing. The turnover, like there was probably a bit of turnover, so that the teams really stayed together, which has been, obviously the owners are happy with it, going, it's just the best it's been.
Yes.
Like you can feel it. It's just we have quarterly team sessions that we do, and I sort of coach the national manager and the area managers, and then we have these growth conversations with the team where we're all bringing things to the table and we're all checking in on our wellbeing regularly. And when you do that, it just becomes more top of mind. It's filtered all the way through. And the leaders are actually thinking, okay, we're going to roll out this new thing. How is that going? We're actually asking the question first, how will that impact the team's well-being? Before we actually go, right, you've got to do this straight away. It's like, okay, this is how we can roll it out. Just little things that
amazing
that make a difference, and having that awareness. And sometimes things in child, there's a new policy, new legislation, it has to be rolled out, today.
Yes.
Very quickly. And,
yes.
But I've done different workshops about thriving through change and understanding the reaction that happens to us when change happens, the physiological threat, and teaching them how to manage that or to look for difference or just to have that awareness, because so many people don't. They just go into like threat and fear. Yeah. Yeah, and how to shift that. Probably want to do a few different ways.
No, that's amazing. I mean, it's definitely something that I'm so passionate about, and what I feel like you have just resolved, and this is probably going to sound quite controversial to the audience, but because there's been so much focus on mental health in the workplace, and there are instances, and I'm definitely not putting a brush across everybody, because there absolutely has been a significant increase in mental health concerns across the workplace and organisations not managing them. But I feel like there has also, in some cases, almost been like a weaponizing of the change in legislation and focus on well-being and wellness, and I it's very controversial. So please no hate emails, because I'm probably just speaking about a very minute few, but I believe that's because organisations don't really understand how to manage well-being. So if someone's performance managed, for example, the stress rises and the burnout and stress is very, very real. But organizations aren't accommodated with the emotional, call it intelligence, to be able to say, okay, let me unpack that situation from a psychological perspective or from a well-being perspective. It's more just kind of like, okay, well, what process do we follow to make sure that we can navigate this to create minimal risk of, if they get terminated, for example, Fair Work. So that's looking at it from a very, kind of technical HR perspective. But what I'm getting to with saying all of this is the work that you do, and if an organisation were to focus on wellbeing intelligence proactively, that's the resolve to any individual or organisation with the perception of that weaponizing mental health within the workplace, because it does mean that you are looking at that from a primary focus. So it takes well-being from the background, brings it to the front. So if you're looking at it proactively, the negative stigma to mental health, the negative, the confusion around what well-being looks like, and the confusion around what causes psychological harm and what the psychosocial hazards are. It all makes sense if you're starting with well-being intelligence
as a foundation. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a bit to that too. Is like, I talk about this intelligence stack, and I actually came across it by Jen Fisher. And Jen Fisher worked at Deloitte for 23 years, and she was the Chief Wellbeing Officer. And she talks about the intelligence stack having wellbeing intelligence as the foundation, because you need that foundation to access your emotional intelligence. And then you need to be able to create that safety and emotional intelligence as a leader and then your human intelligence, accessing that. And then AI, artificial intelligence, what we're amplifying. And she talks about, unless we don't have that foundation, what are we amplifying? It's just a faster track to burnout.
Yes.
And on what you said before about, I do think that's probably a little bit not answer to that question, but in terms of the weaponizing, I think with all policies, I think there's always going to be some people that take advantage of it and weaponize it and don't use it for the right reason. There's always that small number, and that's unfortunate.
Yes.
But on the whole, I think it's just so important. And I think it's looking at, when we talk about mental health, and I do talks on this, I say, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say mental health? And most people put their hand up and go, anxiety, depression, suicide, that's what people say. But that's mental ill health.
Yes.
Mental health is calm, clarity, performance. So it's actually shifting the stigma about that. And that's where I went to a lot of summits with the Queensland Government and Prevention United. And that's why they brought in the term wellbeing, because there was so much stigma associated with mental health, although mental health is good. It's mental ill health.
Yes.
So, the focus has been shifted more to well-being. And I think it's just understanding, that well-being is something that we all have. I actually think it's the thing that brings cultures together, because it's something that we all have to work on. And that's what I learned when I worked with that third richest family in the world. It's a leveler. We've all got to do our well-being. We all need to take care of ourselves. You know, I think it's really important. And I think it's something we can bring people together and share, that we're all different. And, understanding that, yes, there's the wellness component, the exercise, the eating well, the sleep, and, all of those things, feeling good. But life doesn't always feel good. And it's understanding that well-being has deeper meanings, linked to, our character, doing the hard things when it's really, doing the right thing when it's really hard.
Yeah.
Understanding that well-being is connected to our purpose and meaning.
Yes.
And our life satisfaction, and understanding that it's deeper than that. And, for us all to understand that, it's different for everyone, and all of these factors make it up. But when it is brought to the forefront, I think we look out for each other. And I think, I have quite an optimistic personality, that most people, I think, are doing the best thing with what they've got. So it's a term I come across called compassionate latitude, is that, understanding that someone may not be showing up at the best version of themselves. And yes, they may need performance review, but are they showing up like that because they don't want to? Or is it the underlying stress of their nervous system? Are they in fight or flight and they're just overreacting? Have they gone into freeze where they've shut down? Are they really disengaged, or is their nervous system? Are they in that form, that people pleasing? And so I think it's both. I don't think it's one or the other.
Yes.
But I feel sometimes if we can I always talk about nervous system literacy as a new leadership literacy, little terms that I use. But if we do understand that and bring that forward, we're actually supporting these people, like you said earlier, before they may need to go on to these reviews.
Yes.
Or whilst they're on the performance review, let's delve deeper and let's support them with some of those aspects as well, because they're huge.
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful point that I want to revisit from what you had just said, is that explanation that mental health is actually health.
Yeah. It's a great thing.
It's not illness. And, I think we do probably without that wisdom and without really pointing that out, we do quite naturally default, because of the way that we're socialized in workplaces, to go, well, mental health means mental ill health.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean having clarity. It doesn't mean focus. It doesn't mean being able to productively and effectively work in that really engaged state.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast a few episodes ago about AI, and there's a lot of talk about HR. About AI, so I don't want to harp on this too much, but if you look at it, people's ability to problem solve and think critically, because they're outsourcing it to AI, they don't get that dopamine hit of I actually feel proud of myself because I navigated through that particular scenario.
Yeah.
So from a mental health perspective, over a period of time, if they're not enabling themselves to make them feel good because they're putting prompts into a computer, that has a significant impact on our mental health and well-being.
I think we're going to, I think there's going to be a lot of displacement, a lot of changes. I think it's hugely going to affect us. I think we're going into an unknown territory, and that's why I think well-being is even more important as we go into this period, because it's understanding that we do need the dopamine. We do need those small goals to achieve in our day. We do need some purpose and meaning. And if we're losing it by not going through those processes, then, which may happen with an organisation that may be offloaded, but we need to find it somewhere else for our well-being, and understanding that. And on your point about the mental ill health and health, something that has been brought in more recently, but it's still it's still quite new, is the dual continuum model of mental health and wellbeing. And why I like that with organisations educating, because people just think you're either mentally ill or you're mentally healthy.
Yeah.
One or the other. You've got a diagnosis or you're not, right?
Yeah.
But what the dual continuum model does is that you can have high wellbeing and low wellbeing, like cross the continuum. So, for example, you can have no mental ill health, so mental health side, but your well-being can still be quite low.
Yes.
And that's when people are in that languishing phase.
Yes.
And that's where we want to catch them before it becomes mental ill health. But also on the flip side, there can be people who have mental ill health, who have a diagnosed condition, but when they manage themselves really well and take care of themselves, they can still operate with high well-being. So it doesn't mean that that person can't have high well-being. And it's also understanding this whole thing is fluid. Yes. It's not like all of a sudden, like, I'm a high well-being, I work in well-being, so I've got high well-being every single day.
Yes.
Well, no, I have days when things are really hard. Yeah. And I feel my well-being is low. Yeah. And I have to manage lots. So it's understanding that it's okay to not be okay some days, you know. Yes. But it's how we look after it so we don't stay there for too long and shift out of it and looking out for each other in that way.
Yeah. I think the sense of overwhelm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like, and I'm speaking for some of the clients that I work with from a HR perspective, but it is the, priority on priority on priority, and the expectations. And organizations are like, okay, well, we'll throw some AI tools in, therefore they can be more effective. And we don't know what jobs are going to go away. So that creates like massive instability across every single industry ever. But there's not that education and understanding that overwhelm as well can be a temporary state.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Like, I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves and really judge ourselves. It's like, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Yeah. But also know that we can shift that overwhelm. I just get people, my physiology back, just get up and move. Yes. Get up and move, do the breath. Yeah. You can change that state by shifting your position.
It's a signal.
Yeah, it's teaching us something that this is what we need. And, okay, break it down. Like, what do we need to do? Like, we can emotionally cope by doing the breathing and the moving, and then we can break it down with the problem-solving coping. We can, put little small things and chunks, and so we can master it. And, it's okay to work through that, or we might talk to someone. So there's different strategies, and, and it's not identifying. I'm very much about not identifying with that either. Just go, you might be feeling overwhelmed at the moment, but you're not an overwhelmed person. Yes. I think people put themselves in the category sometimes, and they get attached.
Overwhelmed rather than I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, because you're not that. Yes. You're absolutely this amazing person. So it's just little shifts like that, I think, to understand for people. And particularly when we're going through behaviour change processes, because that's what I see, right? I feel that, there's some organisations that bring in these great things, like great ideas, great concepts, but it's about getting people to make the change. Yes. And change requires energy. Yeah. And often when people are really under the pump and they're quite stressed, they don't have the energy for change. So sometimes the first level is, actually working on their nervous system and calming them down so they can see what could be possible in the next steps. Because sometimes something's right in front of them, they just can't see it. Yes. But you see it when you get out of that state. And, I think it's understanding that with change and, the small principles of behaviour change and understanding those processes when we are bringing in things. And I don't think people grasp that as well. I think there's a lot more we can understand about behaviour change and also different people's response to behaviour change. Some people take more time than others, or some people can adapt really quickly. That's their biology. That's their nature. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think organizations do just like, we have to work like so fast paced at the moment. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And, the organizations like throw economics in there as well. Like businesses are struggling. Yep. There's a lot of struggle in businesses, particularly at the moment. So the understanding and the education for them to actually acknowledge we've got to slow down. We've got to reflect on how that piece of work went at the end of it. We've got to reflect. We've got to reflect on how Angela's feeling when she shows up at work today, because that's going to have a significant impact if we do that consistently.
Yeah.
So I do feel there's a lot of work to be done in the area. I do think that, again, with legislative changes, it's always good to have some legislation changes that actually puts the spotlight on it, because organisations need to focus on it.
Yeah.
As organisations, introduce AI, they need to focus on it, and they need beautiful people like you to be able to instill your wisdom and help them understand how to navigate what that looks like in their businesses.
And I don't think it's easy either. Like, I don't think it's easy. I don't think there's one solution. There's not one size fits all. All I think it's about bringing it to the forefront. The leadership team have to be on board. The leadership team are not on board. The wellbeing is not going to work in the organisation. Yeah. And the things that I see most successful as well is sometimes the organisations, they might think, I've got to get this really big policy. We've got all the bells and whistles. We've got all these things that we're going to do, but can't live up to it. So often it's better to bring in something really small that you work in with your team and actually do that. Because that will foster and grow more. Actually do what we say we're going to do. If this is where we're going to start, this is where we're going to start. It doesn't have to be this massive thing, and let's see how that goes. And it might change and evolve. We get the team involved. How's it all working? What works for you? And but it's really important. Like, the leaders have to be on board, and not just mandating. Like, I'm very big on this too. It's about what they model.
Yes.
Don't say go and have your lunch break and then you sitting there like this and you doing emails at, all through the day, like whatever. Like, it's what they model, because then people feel safe to be able to do that.
I was having a conversation the other day about cognitive dissonance in the workplace.
Yeah.
And leaders saying what they do and doing what they say.
Yeah.
And how, again, I think it comes down to pace of work these days, but it's sometimes not intentional that they're not doing what they say.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that what they're role modeling is actually not what they would like their team to role model back to them.
Yeah. It's not I agree, it's not an intentional thing. It's a survival instinct.
Yes.
It's, we go into doing that, It's just, we've got to get stuff done. And it is counterintuitive to have the break or to have the reset. But it's understanding that you're actually not doing nothing in that break. You're actually lowering your cortisol. You're getting a clearer mind. You're going to come back with a lot more focus and energy and be more productive. But it's hard to think like that when there's all the work coming in. Yeah. But also, the organisation has to think, have a break before they're handing over all this work too, and actually thinking, what is the capacity? Where is the team at?
Yes.
So it does go both ways. But, businesses are businesses. They've got to make money. It's not about, so I understand both sides, and it's just, I think it's all in this together. I always talk about, one of my things is wellbeing is everybody's business. It's not the boss's business. It's not the organisation, not yours. It's everyone's. And I teach that in a lot of the practices, and I get people doing little post-it notes like, what's my role? Where can I influence?
Yes.
So that you might have someone in your team who wants to, take a little walking group in the morning, or you might have someone who's got experience in a particular area, or you're in a leadership position, you can make different decisions about the work structure. So I'm in a position here, like how can I, make some change? So actually saying we're all in this together, not waiting for one, it's not just one person's thing, and I think when we start to think like that, it actually brings the team together more too. I work with a group, a big childcare group, and I work with their North Queensland. I went up to North Queensland and worked with 16 directors, so 16 centres across there over a 6-month period. And the changes that were made at the childcare centres were also different because they were also unique to the thing, but they brought in the principles, and I just loved it that they were all stepping in.
Yes.
They all stepped in to bring something. Once the director went back, the team members stepped in and they all contributed. And I think, it just was really heartwarming to see that as well.
Yeah.
And when the leader went back and made some changes, just the ripple effect that what happened within their team as well.
Yes.
From physical well-being to having breaks to opening up about things, talking about stuff. So
There's
I
so
know.
much to talk about here. There is so much to talk about. There is so
I'm
much
worried
to
I'm
talk
going on
about.
too, like you're getting me excited about answering something. I don't know if I'm answering a question. I think I'm sort of going down too many rabbit holes.
Totally fine. But there is so much to talk about, Angela. It's a topic that is that I'm really passionate about. You know, I think I go quite deep in psychosomatic practices and how we physically show up and nervous system regulation. Like there is I could sit here and talk to you for absolute hours. But I do before we finish up, I do just want to touch on this beautiful book that you've written. You know, it's called Will, 104 Days of My Son's Life. So Will to Live. So do you just want to take a moment to tell us about what Will to Live, what the book is and what it means to you?
I guess it's quite a personal story, and it was written, you know, I went through a very difficult period. So in 2015, I had my son. My waters broke at 15 weeks. I was in Mexico. Fast forward, I was on bed rest for 3 months, and my son was born at 27 weeks, and was in the intensive care unit. He lived for 104 days and passed away. And it was just one of the most horrible, traumatic moments and I know a lot of listeners have had those difficult times. And I just share that to know that, you know, we do have these difficult times and life isn't always good.
Yes.
You know, and, you know, yes, I did breath work and meditation and gratitude journals. I was doing all of that before this happened. But sometimes life isn't good.
Yes.
And I had to go through that pain. And a year later, I ended up having my daughter live. And I was always going to name my children that. And it wasn't until working with a mentor I understand, oh my goodness, will to live. It was like will to live. Oh my goodness, we all have a will to live. Like will and live are both nouns, but they're also verbs.
Yes.
And that anyone has a will to live and get through some really tough, difficult times.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that there's a lot of people, particularly at the moment, going through really challenging times. And in the intensive care unit with Will, what I really learned was it was the most horrible, traumatic period, but also it was the most beautiful, loving, present time, and we can always find those moments. And then I also realised that the will to live can be in any moment. We can choose right now to have a glass of water instead of me having my other coffee here, or I can choose to smile at Kylie and have that feeling. I can choose to have a moment of thinking, you know, great, how grateful I am or how lucky I am. We can shift to do that. I can get up and go for a walk after this, or I can sit and put my feet up on the couch. Like we have choices.
Yes.
And we can make those little choices to what's meaningful and fulfilling for us. And what I really realized, that book for me, it's and this mission and this framework, Will to Live, it's helped give me meaning, you know, and finding meaning during difficult times really helps us stay connected to life. And finding that meaning and purpose was a huge part for my well-being, actually writing that. I actually wrote it 6 years ago and it sat there because it was just part of the process of, you know, getting it out. And I didn't want to forget things that happened. I'm thinking, I don't want to forget things that happened in Will's life. I was starting to forget things. And I was like, so I started writing it like that. And then it became a book, and then it just sits there. Because it's quite, you know, it's scary. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to get out? And he would have been 10 last year. And I just felt this overwhelming, I've got to get it out. And I got it out, and there it is. And I guess it's sort of the story. It's sort of my why behind my work, that that we all have this will to live, and in any moment, you know, and sort of that's sort of what I talk about. You know, we've all got our why and our meaning to our work, and that's mine. That's the book. And the Will to Live framework is like wake, contend, love, live. You know, can life be that simple?
Yeah, exactly
You know,
right. We talk about complexity and frameworks, the need to do that, but that is something that, you know, our sense of purpose, like it is pretty simple if we can just find the words in our vocabulary to be able to articulate what it is. But it's that sense of feeling, and you know, that's so deeply personal to you, but everyone has their deep sense of purpose.
Yep.
And to be able to, you know, with the wellbeing intelligence, to be able to bring that to the forefront and allow everybody to see that magic of what their deep, intimate purpose is something that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and we all have it. And I just think, particularly as we navigate this changing time, I think it's going to be a real opportunity for us to access that, because I feel the world's going to need
Yes.
all of us to be sharing our gifts and our purpose.
Yes.
And looking out for each other. And
Yeah. Beautiful.
Cool.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Angela. There is so much more. We honestly sit here for hours.
No, it's gone quick. I was like, my daughter's outside. I think, oh my goodness, what time is it?
But thank you very much for coming in. And, for anybody that's listening, if you would like to get in touch with Angela, it's Angela Lee-Jenkins. You can find her on LinkedIn, or you're welcome to contact me through my website at kanculture.com, and I'm happy to connect you through. But thank you so much for joining me.
Oh.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode, and like or subscribe, whichever platform you're listening to. And I really encourage you, if this conversation is quite deep and quite personal and very purposeful, and it's a conversation that needs to be raised at every organization. So if you're a leader and you haven't had a conversation like this with your team, but you were listening going, yes, that's what I need. That's what I need to bring to my workplace. That's what I need to bring to my team. That's what I need to bring to myself. I really, really, really encourage you to raise it in your organization. Have the conversations that need to be had, and do it unapologetically. Like give yourself actual permission to step in to help your well-being and your wellness and your team's wellness. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me on Kan Talk Culture. I'm Kylie Anne Neal. I hope today's episode gave you a clearer view into the values driving your workplace, or sparked new ideas about building a remarkable company culture. If you're a founder or CEO interested in sharing your culture story, or if you're looking to build a safer, stronger, and more trusted workplace, let's connect. Visit kanculture.com. That's KANKULTURE.com to learn more. Please hit that subscribe button to hear more real conversations with founders and CEOs, and hands-on episodes full of people-first culture advice. I look forward to connecting with you on our next episode.